So I was catching up on my video watching the other day, and I saw that Fern had done 10 questions and suggested that other YouTubers do the same, follow suit, and then tag her. And I thought, well, that could be kind of fun. She doesn't know who I am, but that could still be kind of fun. So join me with a tasty beverage of your choice close to hand while we do 10 questions, your questions, and the best of 2025. And before we get underway, I'm happy to take this opportunity to send out a special thanks to DH3R147, who sent me a super thanks recently. Your support for my channel goes a long way in helping to keep me in Hoyas and Dischidia, technology, infrastructure, and all the stuff that goes into making these videos. So thank you very, very much for your support. And we've got some stuff in bloom this week. Apparently some of these kids don't know that it's December and kind of chilly outside, but they've just been going to town. So the first one up is my Hoya calistophylla, and it's got some blooms in there. The end of some blooms up here. There's some more down in there. And there's another peduncle getting ready to come in over here. So, oh, and there's two peduncles down in there. I probably can't tip this to show that, but there's a couple peduncles down in there. This has turned into such a pretty little plant that, yeah, I'm really happy about it. It needs a real optimistic trellis and some work, but yeah, it's just gorgeous, you know? It took it a while to get established and happy, but it seems that it is, and I'm really happy about that myself. And this is my Hoya calistophylla. And next up, what I'm really, really happy about, this is Hoya lobi orange. And let's see if I can get this to cooperate a little bit. Those blossoms are really pretty. The orange, of course, refers to the color of the blooms. They don't have much of a scent right now, but it's early afternoon. And yeah, they might get stronger in the evening, so I have to check on that. I just saw that this one was blooming. The nectar is sweet, but it's not like a sugar sweetness. It's got like a rich syrup kind of taste to it. But yeah, the leaves are gorgeous, very interesting. It's done once it got established, there's multiflora blossoms everywhere. That girl is messy. Once it got established, it's been doing really well, and I was just really happy to see those. Hoping they'll focus, but of course I put some close-ups over here at some point because I was somewhat responsible. So yeah, this one's done really well. This is Hoya lobi with orange blooms. And again, my little Hoya nabawanensis, and it's blooming right now. And that's very cool. I think the leaves on this are really pretty. Just very, very nice. There's another peduncle in there. And yeah, this one blooms fairly regularly. And once it got settled, it's just been a steady grower. Blooms a lot. Oh, there's another peduncle up in there, getting ready to do that, and one there. Ooh, very cool. Yeah, but this one grows really well for me. Blooms regularly, no trauma, no drama, no hassles. And this is Hoya nabawanensis. And finally, my little Hoya loki is blooming. Hoya loki is almost always blooming. But once it blooms on a peduncle, it doesn't bloom there again. It just grows. This one's almost a meter, 39.37 inches. Let's see there's some curves in it, but it's actually, well, yeah, 3 feet. So that's a yard. That's close to a meter, 9 inches off, but this one is just growing like a weed for me. So yeah, really happy to always see these white blossoms. This is very cool. And this is Hoya Loki. And now we start with Fern's questions. And her first question is, what is the plant that you crossed off your wish list this year? And it's me, so there's a couple of them. First one was a Hoya serpens. And I had been hesitant about this because I had heard it was really difficult and finicky and fussy, and so far it hasn't proven to be that. It's been chugging right along. The seller, the plants, I ordered a specific plant, but when she went to ship that plant, she was a little concerned about how it looked, so she included an extra one just to make sure I was a happy customer, which is thumbs up. So the other one is doing very well. The leaves are really pretty. It's kind of neat, and it's doing fine, so we're happy about that. The next one is, you've seen it a couple times, but this is my Hoya biruensis, and that blossom is still there. That's almost 2 weeks now. This has just done really well. It's grown like a weed. I think it's really neat. I think those blooms are very, very interesting. I don't have a blossom like that in the collection, so that's really neat. My Chloraluca, I had tried this from cuttings for a couple of times, and it just did not. There are some Hoyas that don't seem to travel really well and then recover as a cutting, and I think this is one of them. So yeah, the cuttings did not do well, but I have a connection who has some good stuff. Boy, that sounds awful, doesn't it? Probably haven't said that since I was in college. So I was able to get a nice rooted plant, and it has done. It wasn't happy about traveling either, and was threw a little bit of a hissy fit. But then bounced right back and started growing again. So it's very cool. Very happy with this one. I know the leaves aren't anything spectacular, but the blossoms remind me of, this one hasn't bloomed yet, but I've seen pictures. The blossoms remind me of a Hoya bella, but instead of that fuchsia magenta color in the center, it's got like a lime green, a dark lime green. So yeah, I really wanted to get one of those. So that's doing well. And finally, Hoya leucantha, which has been growing up a storm for me. Again, I tried this one a couple of times as cuttings, and yeah, they just didn't, the cuttings just didn't take. So I found a rooted plant, and it's doing really well. I'm very happy about this. So yeah, that's who I've crossed off my wish list for this year. And they're all we're happy, so things are good there. Second question from Fern's 10 is, what is the genus that you want to get more into in this new year? And there's two, because it's me. The first one is papuahoya, and the second one is Oreosparte. Papuahoya I have not had success with yet, but I'm working on that. And the Oreosparte I didn't even know existed as a genus until I bought one that was labeled as Papuahoya species 01. And a plant seller who's becoming a good friend sent me a note and explained why it wasn't what it was labeled. It wasn't from him, but why it wasn't what it was labeled and what it actually was. And it's an Oreosparte species. So that's, yes. Question 3 is, what is your plant care routine? And my plant care routine is that I routinely underwater my Hoyas and then play catch up. There's a lot of watering to do, but I have now figured out a solution, which I will show you later on, to make that more efficient and much easier for me. So yeah, that's my routine. Whoever's screaming the loudest gets the attention, and I'm always playing catch up with the water. So a plant success, question 4, a plant success from 2025. And you saw my biruensis. I'm so thrilled about that. I wasn't quite sure how that was going to go. And although this next one, I got it in 2024, this year it has just gone nuts. And that's the Oreosparte species that I mentioned. It had been listed and sold as papuahoya species 01. It's actually an Oreosparte, and it has just grown like crazy. It was on this shelf back here under brighter light, but as I got closer, it started getting really bleached out and didn't look very good. So I moved it and its gorgeous little leaves over here, where it was a little bit further from the grow light and partially shaded by some other plants. And it's crazy the amount of growth on this. So I have to sit down for an hour or so and get him sorted out. But yeah, this is one of my successes for 2025. Just this one taking off as it does, or as it did, as it's going to. Yes. Question number 5, a plant failure from 2025. And there are a couple. My Hoya species AH014. It was almost 5 feet tall, and it became top heavy and tipped over. And so I straightened that up, repotted it, got it settled in, thought I had a better pot for it with more weight on the bottom. And we went another couple of weeks, and it reached out and it's growing and fell over again. And it just never recovered from being upended like that a couple times. So that was a bummer. Papuahoya biculiana. I don't think it travels well as unrooted cuttings. The vines are very, very thin, and so are the leaves. And so I've tried it twice now. I'm going to try, I think I've got a line on a rooted plant because I want a papuahoya. But yeah, it came in, I settled it in with some nutrient solution and water, and that didn't work. And I tried it in my typical net pot with some pon and pumice, and that didn't work. So I think I maybe have a line on a rooted plant, and so fingers crossed for that one. And finally, my Hoya undulata. It did so well for such a long time. It was shipped in December a few years ago, and it got lost in the mail, and it was 6 or 7 days to get here, and it survived all that and grew and grew and grew. And then I touched it, and it went like, no, you don't get to touch me. Bye. And it began a long, slow, painful death. And I am going to try again, but just not quite yet. It's just that one was tough to watch. Question number 6 of Fern's 10 questions is a plant trend prediction for 2026. And I have no clue. I am so far out of the loop. I grow my plants, I make my videos, and I watch what other people are doing. I don't know. None of them interest me, so I don't really pay attention. I think there's going to be a shift. This is not a trend, but I think there's going to be a shift in the Hoya community. I think a lot of people got into Hoyas when we were all locked in our houses. And it's not that Hoyas are difficult, but I think people have lives now. And so even the little bit of time that plants require, I think people are just going to be backing off on plants. They at one point had like 40 and 50, and now they're finding that 5 or 6, is completely adequate for their needs. So I think that's going to be, I think new people are going to discover the genus of Hoya and Dischidia and their relatives, and other people are just going to be backing off on plants, on having so many plants all together. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from. Question number 7 of Fern's questions is, what season do you find the most challenging regarding plant care? And for me, it's fall. My plants do really well in the spring and in the summer, and my Hoyas anyway, do really well in the winter. But it's that time between when the cool temperatures start kicking in and I finally turn the furnace on, there's about a month and a half in there where the temperatures are a little bit cooler than my Hoyas would like. But, if I'm not turning on the furnace for me, I'm not turning on the furnace for them. So they just all slow down for a good month or month and a half. When the furnace finally kicks in and the temperature, is warmer here in the plant room, and right now it's my handy little thermometer here, 72.7 degrees Fahrenheit and 10.7 degrees Celsius or centigrade, whichever it is. I'm old enough I learned it as centigrade. And it's about 40% humidity in here, so it's time to start running the humidifier soon. Not quite yet, but yeah, that's the time. It's not difficult. It's when all the Hoyas just slow down. They grow like crazy in the spring and summer. They grow like crazy in the winter. But that time when the temperatures are 58 to 62 on average, they just kind of like, all right, we'll take a little break. We get it. Question number 8 is, what plant pest do you struggle with the most? And while flat mites are an annoyance, I know how to take care of them. The one that's been driving me crazy this year is mealybugs, and not on my Hoyas. I so far have not had any major problems with mealybugs on my Hoyas. And I'll toss out a possibility about that. But I ordered some orchids online, and they came in. They looked fine. They seemed to be doing okay and settling in. And so, like, every week I was taking them in the shower and giving everybody a good rinse and getting them a good drink. And after about 3 weeks, I noticed that 2 of the orchids that I had gotten from a particular company were covered in some variety of mealybugs. They like exploded overnight. And of course, all my Hoyas had been in the shower playing together. So, not Hoyas, all my orchids had been in the shower playing together. So I lost almost all my orchids, which is like 12 to 14 of them. I couldn't get ahead of this mealybug situation. They weren't like the typical mealybugs, and maybe they weren't even mealy, but they looked like typical mealybugs, but they did not behave like them. A few of them got on some Hoyas, not here in the Hoya room, but on the plant porch, actually. But they didn't take over the Hoyas, and I was able to clean them up with no trouble from there. But on the Phalaenopsis, they just killed them. They just ate them. I would rinse it off and spray it off with alcohol and rinse the roots and everything else, and it looked fine for 2 days, and 2 days later, they were all back. So I decided I wasn't going to fight it anymore, and those that were terribly infested just didn't come back in. They're dying on the porch in the cold. So it's just like, so that was really, and I'm of the opinion, I'm not sure about this, maybe there's somebody who knows for sure who can toss something in, but there are different types of mealybugs. Some that really prey on Hoyas and some that prey on other things. I know there's different varieties of scale that have attacked different plants, so why not mealybugs as well? But yeah, that was just, I was really sad because I'd had some of those plants for 15 years. So yeah, that was disappointing. But I'm going to start building up the collection again of orchids because I really enjoy them, and fingers crossed. Question number 9 of Fern's 10 questions. My top wish list plant for 2026. And like everything else, it's not just one. There's a couple of them. I'm looking for a Hoya Niehaus, or pardon, let's try that as Hoya Niehusiae. And that was named after Torvald Niehaus, who's involved with the Swedish Hoya Society for years. I'm looking for a Dischidia tomentella, and I'm looking for a papuahoya biculiana. The tomentella and the biculiana, I may have a line on. I have to drop my friend an email, probably in between the holidays, and see what the scoop is. I sent him an ISO email, but he's running a business, so I cut him some slack. And finally, of Fern's top 10 questions is, what is your favorite plant of 2025? It's me, so I have two, and they're both right here. And the first one is my Beerwences. I had no expectations for this plant when I ordered it. I ordered it because it was a brand new publication, and it just was kind of neat, and it was new, and it was from Michaela Rhoda, and we're Facebook friends. And so I thought, I'm going to find one of those. And I did, and it grew like this is all new growth. I know some people looked at it and said, I don't get the hype. And that's okay. There's 500 species of Hoya. There's bound to be a few you're not going to like. But this one bloomed within 7 months. It's growing like crazy. Happy, happy. The other one is my Oreosparte sabaensis. And this came as one really nice cutting from one of my plant buddies. And I thought, it was like a long cutting, like, a good foot or 30 centimeters. So I decided I was going to cut it in half and double my chances. And both of the plants did very, very well. They're growing. It's a fuzzy plant, really, really fuzzy, but it's done really well. They're not rampant growers, but they're slow and steady. And it's growing under my Sansi grow lights, and everybody seems to love those. My plants, I love them too, but the plants all seem to appreciate that. But it's just growing steady and strong. So I'm probably going to have to do something with it in the near future. It's got a nice little root system in there. But yeah, this is my other favorite plant of 2025. So Fern, I'm going to tag you in the comments, and you can start watching my channel as I watch yours. And we'll become plant besties. How about that? Silliness, she doesn't know who I am. And each year about this time, I ask my viewers to send in the name of the city and the country where they're watching me. And I always enjoy that and look forward to it. It's neat to see where people are from. And if you responded to the question a couple weeks ago, then here's the list we've all been waiting for. Thank you all very much. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you commenting and liking, subscribing, sending me information and tips, and sharing your languages and hometowns with me. So thank you all very, very much. And last week I told you all that if you had any questions that you wanted to ask, go ahead and do so, and I would answer them. And so every question that came in by the time of this recording, I'm going to answer. We'll talk about. The first one came from Sandra and Nala, and the question was, do you have any other hobbies than plants? And I have two that I derive a lot of pleasure from. One of them is bonsai, and the other is bowling. And I'm not necessarily good at either one of them, but I do really enjoy them. So yeah, that's that. From Leslie German, the question is, do you have any limits on the number of plants you will own? For example, do you have spatial limits or numeric limits or time limits, or is it an ever-expanding envelope? And she said, sorry, I have two questions. What separates a plant fail that you won't try again, think F-word plants, versus those you'll rebuy? So do I have any limits? Yes, space and time. Um, there's just so much space. The conditions in this room are really good for my Hoyas, but it's getting very, very, very full. And I do have some Hoyas other places throughout the house, but they don't do as well as they do in this room. So yeah. And time limits. I have a lot of Hoyas because somebody asked that question, so I'll save that answer for that question. I have a lot of Hoyas and other plants, so the time required just to water is crazy. But I have a bit of a hack that's making that easier for me, so yeah. So those are my limitations. As far as I'm concerned, there is only one F-word plant, and that is ficus. Never, ever, ever again, any form, shape. No, not happening. That's my F-word plant. But plants I won't try again. Sometimes I'll see something interesting and order it on a whim. Not so much Hoyas. Hoyas, I know I want the plant before I order it. But I'll be in a shop or see something online. It's like, well, that looks really cool. I want to give that a try. And if I order it on a whim and it doesn't do terribly well, then I probably won't try it again. Begonias. I think they're really pretty. I think they're really neat. I have not had any success with them. As you saw last week, I've only got one surviving begonia. Calatheas, nope, never again. Alocasias, I've only got one alocasia left, and I won't buy any others. I'm the only one that gets to put out that much drama in the course of a month or a day. So, yeah. Next question is from Lady TMC, and she says, how many Hoyas do you have? And the current count is 195 Hoyas, 16 Dischidia, and 3 Oreosparte. And Dischidia and Oreosparte and papuahoya are all cousins of Hoya. So that's the count right now. Vicky3792 asked, when and how did you get into plants? First plant, and is it still alive? My grandmother grew African violets, and she grew them very, very well. She would enter them in county fair competitions and get ribbons and stuff like that. Sadly, my mother did not inherit that gene, and although she tried, her successful plants were petroleum-based. So, we had a plastic plant in the living room that was some kind of philodendron type of imitation. But my mom was doing, my mom was raising 2 kids and running a household, and so, I don't blame her. She just didn't get that gene. So that's okay. My first plant was when I went off to college, and it was a Tradescantia Tahitian bridal veil, which I now have learned is a Gibasis pellucida. And I got that when I first went off to college in 1974. And no, it's not with us. I don't think it even saw the end of that first year of college. I would just forget to water it occasionally, and Tradescantia does not take kindly to that, and it just crisped up, and Rest in peace. From Loves Yorkies 3395, she asks, what other plants do you have that you haven't shown us? Also, do you have plants around your home or just in your plant room and the sunroom? Yes, I do have other plants. I have about 100 other plants. But they only stay in the sunroom for maybe 6 or 7 months a year. When the cooler weather comes, they have to come back in the house. There's no insulation out there, and there's no heat, so that's not going to happen. I have aglonema, which I like. I have some Asian violets, which I also like. If you've had trouble with African violets, Asian violets, primulina, they do really well. I have some Ripsalis. I have Schlumbergera, Christmas cactus, Thanksgiving cactus. I have a couple of anthurium. We are struggling. I seem to do better with the strappy-leafed anthurium than the regular ones. I have lithops and other mesems, which I showed you last week, I think, Dracaena, Monstera orchids, and there's a few other odds and ends. So that sort of brings the total plants in and around the house to around 300. And I'm finding that that's a bit beyond what I care to do. So if something doesn't do well and it's on its last legs, I send it out to plant hospice, and I'm thinning out what I want to collect and keep around. But yeah, there's a lot of plants around here. I have heard the term hoarder tossed in my direction, but no, the plants I have are deliberate. Hoarding is accidental. Linda 3808 asks, have you done much traveling? More specifically, have you traveled to any of the places where your plants come from? And I've done a bit of traveling, and I have been to some of the places where my plants come from. I studied in India for a term when I was in college, and there are quite a few Hoyas that come from India, specifically some that come from the part of India that I was in, which is southern India. And I believe that's Paucifloras from there. There are a couple others as well. If you ever get the chance to go to India, go, absolutely go. The people were absolutely wonderful, so generous and so kind and so welcoming. Of course, that was back in the 70s, but hopefully we haven't screwed that up too much. But it was just a wonderful, wonderful place. I would absolutely encourage it. The reason I went is my bachelor's degree. I did a double major, so my degree is in history and South Asian studies. So that's part of the reason for the trip. Xenia Bouchard, and I hope I pronounced that correctly, 6496 asks, do you keep epiphytic cacti, epiphyllum Salinicerius, or any type? And if so, would you show us? Yes, I do. I have a couple epiphyllum. I have several Schlumbergera and some Ripsalis, and I'm running through an inventory in my head. I tried moving some of my Ripsalis to self-watering. Some of them liked it. Some of them decided it was not a good idea for them, and they are now compost. So it's a mixed blessing. But yeah, maybe if anyone's interested, I could do a video on my experiences with my epiphytic cacti and see what everybody thinks about that. Laura Poor 6451 asks, would you ever consider taking us along on one of your shopping sprees at a greenhouse you frequent? I don't know if that's even possible or not, but if so, would you? I am thinking that through in my head. Usually, I'm not crazy about the come shopping with me videos. And some of you will appreciate my reasoning for it. When people show me what's in their Lowe's or their Home Depot or their big box store, it's never in mine. So it's like, well, I can't get that. So there's a certain amount of frustration. And yeah. But my thinking is that if I can get to like 5,000 subscribers, then I can contact the folks at Logis and say, listen, I have a decent number of followers, decent number of viewers on a regular basis. I'd like to come over and meet with Byron and do a tour of Logis setup and do the same thing with Jordan's Jungle here in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and Briggs Nursery up in North Attleboro. So yes, I'd be interested in doing that. I don't want to take my camera and just wander around because to me, without asking permission of the greenhouses, it seems kind of rude. And I'd much rather have their cooperation. But it could be something because Jordan's Jungle and Logis and Briggs are places to see. And if you don't live nearby, then the only way you can see them is through video. So I'm kind of thinking through how to do that. And I think it's going to be a process of approaching these places and having a chat with them. But yeah, so that's yes and not quite yet, but we're going to give it a try. Coastal Life R9J asks, do you grow plants outdoors as well? And sort of. I have the typical plantings that you'd have around your property. There's some holly and there's some evergreens and mugo pines and stuff like that. But I also grow bonsai, and I have about 35 or 40 of them. So they spend the summer outside. They're all outdoor plants, the ones I have. And so that's where they spend the summer. Leo, and I'm not going to pronounce your last name correctly, but I'm going to try. Leo Kleinherrenbrink. Can you tell a bit more about the setup you use for making those beautiful close-ups, camera, lens, lighting, and aperture? And hold on just a second. Okay, so you're either going to be disappointed or encouraged. My setup for taking the still photos. I use my phone. I use a clip-on magnifying lens that clips on the side of the camera or side of the phone over the lens. And I use a little ring light that I got from IKEA. It has a holder for a phone to fit in here, but I never use it for that. But I like it because it's got an adjustable neck and the light level is adjustable. So, you know, it's not anything fancy. What you do is if you need like 5 or 6 photos, you shoot 20 because some of them won't turn out well and others, you know, and it's a simple matter of just clipping the lens over the lens, and that's all there is to it. There's a lot of these kind of things available online at that big store, and they aren't expensive. So yeah. The only thing I do is I really crank up the resolution on that photography program, that camera program, so I get the highest resolution possible. That's my secret. It's no secret. Wobbly T asks, did you ever figure out why some peduncles drip nectar? Not old nectar from flowers, but sweet sticky stuff coming straight out of not blooming peduncles. No, I haven't figured that out yet. I'm kind of working on it. And part of me is like curious, but part of me also says, you know, Hoyas do crazy things. So it's probably similar to other plants that produce the, what are the nectaries? So it may be doing that. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe the nectar in Hoyas is actually produced in the peduncle and pumped out to the flowers. I don't know. So don't take that as like, you know, I'm not an expert. I'm not a botanist. So, you know, yeah, no, I don't know. And Wobbly T asked several questions, and they were all kind of interesting. So the next one is, which Hoyas have bloomed for you less than a year after rooting them? And there have been several that were like up on it. Hoya carnosa, Wilbur Graves, bloomed for me, grew like crazy and bloomed in a year. Hoya biruensis, 7 months from, and that was a rooted plant, it wasn't a cutting, but 7 months from when it arrived. Hoya chinghungensis, that started blooming probably 5 or 6 months after it arrived, and it's got gorgeous blooms. It's turned into a really big plant. Hoya marillii, it shocked me intensely. I hadn't even noticed the peduncle, and it was probably 3 months after it arrived that it bloomed for the first time. And I didn't think I'd ever get a Hoya to bloom, and there they were. So that was very cool. Hoya bella, once I got it settled into a self-watering pot, blooms regularly as long as I keep up with my end of the watering deal. Hoya David Kamingi, I bought a rooted plant from Logi's, got it home, got it settled in pond and self-watering, and within a couple months, it was blooming. I love the smell of David Kamingi blossoms. So so that's another good one. A lot of my lacunosas, this sounds arrogant, I don't even notice that they're blooming anymore because they bloom so regularly. As long as I keep up with the watering, they bloom very regularly. So I can, for soon bloomers, quick bloomers, early bloomers, any of those are really, yeah, I'm just looking around, seeing if there's anybody I missed that has done like blooms right out of the box. Fuwaensis does really well. It's getting ready to bloom right now. And if you pay attention to Caudata, it'll do okay for you too. Mine really like an organic mix, but you got to keep the stems are woody and the leaves are really thin and don't hold any moisture, so you got to keep on top of the watering to get caudata blooms. But yeah, that's cool. Another question they asked was, if you could choose any location in the world, where would you live? And I never would have thought I'd said this, but I like where I live. I really like living in Rhode Island. I get 4 seasons, 4 distinct seasons, and they're all mild. So yeah, we get snow in the winter and we occasionally get blizzards, but it's not a big deal. It's not constant snow on the ground. And okay, I'm fine with a blizzard. I mean, I'm retired. I'm not going anywhere, so I can sit happily in my house and, have a tasty beverage and watch it snow outside. And, that doesn't bother me. Spring is glorious. Summer, we get a few days that are up in the 90s, but for the most part, it's mid and upper 80s, and I'm fine with that. Summers are so mild, I don't even have an air conditioner. I'm willing to put up with 3 or 4 days of, 95, 100-degree temperature because it's summer, but it calms right down after that. So yeah, and fall is beautiful with all the trees and everything changing color. So where I live in Rhode Island, I am 40 minutes away from downtown Boston. I'm about 2.5 to 3 hours away from downtown New York City. I can be in Massachusetts. I could walk to Massachusetts in 15 minutes. I could be on the ocean in probably a 15-minute drive. Rhode Island is only 40 miles wide and 70 miles tall, but we have more coastline than Texas. We have 400 miles of coastline. Fresh seafood. The restaurant scene here is just incredible. We have one of the leading culinary schools here in Rhode Island, Johnson & Wales University. So you can get any kind of food you want here. It's just staggering. So yeah, I'm planted in Rhode Island. Didn't start out here, but I kind of put down roots. So yeah, I wouldn't choose any place else. And she asks, which plant supply runs out the fastest? Pon and pumice. Pon and pumice because I use them for most of my Hoyas, and I use them for my bonsai, and I mix them in with most of my other organic mixes or even soil-based mixes just to increase the drainage. So yeah, matter of fact, I've got an 18-pound bag of pon coming today. I just got pumice a couple weeks ago. So yeah, that's what I run out of fast. And that's what I run out of. And they ask, what is your ideal self-watering planter? And I kind of like the ones I have. I prefer wick-based over platform-based. And because I had to buy over 200 of them, price is a huge, huge factor. So the ones I buy aren't great. Hold on, I've got one handy. So yeah, it's a wick-based pot, slots, holes, cover pot. I buy a lot of these. They're not the highest quality, but then they're at a reasonable price. So that's my trade-off. I have to buy a lot of them. So what for me would make these ideal is if there was a little window down one side so I could see the level without having to do that. That having been said, though, I can typically, if I pick up the plant, just grab the whole thing and lift, I can tell whether or not there's water in the reservoir. Like this one has a decent amount of water, and the roots are going to be well moist. Wick is moist. So yeah, the reservoir is just under the fill level. But that is only because I've lifted a lot of pots. I also know with my watering device, I can, my little pitcher or my little watering can, I can pour and count to 4. With my tank, I can count to about 4. They flow out at the same rate. So if I pick it up and it feels really light, then I know I can just like 1, 2, 3, 4, and that'll be good. So yeah, those are the ones I use. Is anything missing in your collection? And if so, what? Could be a plant, could be lights, could be space. Said it before, space and time and papuahoya. I have a really short wish list right now. There's a few things I'm looking for. I mentioned some of them. Things that I don't have in my collection. And so, yeah, I know when you start out, it's really easy to like go, oh, Hoya, buy it. And, you grab anything that's labeled Hoya that fits your price range and that looks interesting. And I did it. We've all done it. That's kind of how it goes once you discover the genus. But then when you get to a certain number of plants, you start saying, no. Like, how many lacunosa do I need? And my answer now is not as many as I have. I have about 14 of them. But they are different from each other or different to each other. I'm not quite sure what the correct grammar is on that. But they're mostly over here. That's why I'm looking that direction. But again, how many do you need? There's lots and lots of varieties of Finlaysonii and that whole complex. But I got 3 Finlaysonii and I figured that's enough. Yeah, I got it. We're okay there. There's other interesting things. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. What's missing is a papuahoya. There are 3 named species of papuahoya, and I really want to have one. That's I'm gonna work on that though. That's a goal for this year. And Amy Sue West 3826 asked, my question is about your nutrient water. What is in it, if I can ask, and is it good only for watering, or can it be used to fertilize plants growing in water? I should have planned this better. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So I grow most of my Hoyas in a passive hydroponic system. And so and most of them in pond, passive hydro and pond, and self-watering. There are no nutrients in generic pond. The brand name pond has some Osmocote that's been, I believe it's Osmocote or something similar that's been added to that mix. But generic pond and generic pumice have no nutrients. So plants growing in that kind of a setup need nutrients. Water alone is just not going to do it. They're just not going to get anything they need other than the trace elements that are in the water. So I use the Flora series from General Hydroponics. This is not an endorsement. I'm not sponsored or anything else by General Hydroponics. This was the one I first learned about. This is the one I became most familiar with, so that's the one I use. I know there are other brands out there, but it's a 3-part system. One part is micronutrients. The other part is to encourage foliar growth. And the third part is to encourage blooming. And you mix them up. I mix them a gallon at a time. Follow the if you opt for this brand, follow the instructions that are on the label. There's a specific order in which you need to add them to the water. So you add this one and then you agitate it. And then you add you add each one, shake it up. But you always start with this one. And that's what I've been using. Now, I'm lazy, so I often use that for watering the other plants in the house. My Hoyas, anything in self-watering gets that mix all the time. That's where they get their food from. The food they don't make, but the nutrients they absorb, that's where they get it from. My other plants get a shot of that mix during the growing season, during spring and summer and fall. They get a shot of that maybe every other week. Not necessarily do a full watering with it, but they get some of it. And then they get tap water. And I use tap water because, why should my plants get better water than I do? So, yeah. I have a couple plants that don't take tap water. My Drosera, my Pinguicula, and my Nepenthes. But I use water from my dehumidifier. for them. So there's nothing in it. It's just water. So yeah. Now, the other thing I add to my watering mix is Pure Crop 1. And it's kind of, everything I'm going to say from here out is anecdotal. I have no scientific evidence to support it. It is sold as an insecticide and fungicide. And I add it to each batch of the nutrient solution. I'm trying to figure out just how to phrase this. I don't have a lot of mealybug issues. I don't have any mealybug issues really with my Hoyas. I think some of that is due to this. It seems to act, in my experience, as something of a preventative, as a systematic. But as with most systematics, you can't just put it in and water it and it taking effect right away. Systematics need to get into the system. So I think that product may be contributing to my lack of insects, pests in the Hoya room. I don't think it works on flat mites. I have not tried it as a foliar spray. If I notice that there are flat mites or I suspect, I treat them with sulfur. I don't have time. Beneficial insects would be great, but beneficial insects are also killed by sulfur. And I began my treatment with sulfur, and there is still sulfur residue on some of the plants, and that would kill any beneficial insects I brought in. So if you don't want to do sulfur and you want beneficial insects, then either clean off your plants really well or don't start with sulfur in the first place. That's what I use in my nutrient solution. So yeah, not an endorsement of any of it. And I have no evidence about using Pure Crop 1. My only issue with Pure Crop 1 is it's expensive. And guys, it's vegetable oil, some kind of thing. So, it's expensive. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. One thing I did notice is that while I had some algae growing in some of my self-watering pots before, when I started adding the Pure Crop 1, algae went away. It just, essentially all died, and I had to rinse out the pots and clean that stuff out. But I don't mind. I had to do that once. So yeah. So that's what I use in my nutrient solution. And that's the questions that you guys sent in. I usually don't do this much talking over the course of a day, so I'm a tad parched. And now we come to the best of. And first section is about plants. And one of my best ofs, making an appearance again, is my Oreosparte species, formerly known as papuahoya 01. This has just been, if you can find a rooted or a cutting of this at a reasonable price, and you like that whole look, jump all over that puppy. My Hoya biruensis, I know I keep coming back to it, but it's just been so much fun. I'm so glad it's doing that well. That's been very cool. Come on over here, kids. My Oreosparte sabaiensis has just done so well. I'm so pleased about it. It's such an interesting genus, and I'm just beginning to get into it, collect it, and really learn to appreciate it. And what I think I have to call as the best of the best is my Dischidia nummulariioides. This thing has just grown a treat. I think it's really pretty and very interesting and looks so cool trailing. I think when it gets to be a really lush, full plant, it's going to be even more beautiful than it is right now. It was fairly inexpensive, fairly easy to find. It has given me no trouble. It took the transfer to pond like that. Yeah, I think this might be, I know it's not a Hoya, but I think this might be the plant of the year for me. This is just, I'm so happy about this. I actually had to move it out here on my desk because I like checking in with it every time I'm in the plant room. So yeah, my plant of the year is Dischidia numelarioides. Now, best stuff. Come on. Okay, there we go. The best new stuff of the year, as many of you have noticed, and some of you have kindly commented, I bought a better camera, and it has made a big difference. It focuses very effectively for me. It does a really good job. I was reluctant to invest in good equipment at the start, but when the time was right, I got the right camera, so it's really cool. So yeah, that was the other thing, and you saw me talk about this last year, but I've upgraded, and that is my pump sprayer. I splurged and bought a 2-gallon one, which is 8 liters, and I got wheels for it. This is a plant stand with casters on the bottom, and I used the shoulder strap to kind of affix it to the plant stand. It's not a perfect solution, but with 2 gallons of nutrient solution and the wheels, it makes watering so much easier. I used to use this on the shoulder strap, and space is tight in here, and I had this tank bumping into things and knocking stuff over. Here I can put it on the floor, use the wand, I can reach up to the highest plant in this plant room and water it, and it rolls around on its wheels. Makes my life so much easier. Water weighs 8 pounds to the gallon, and I'll put up whatever conversion is over here, but that would be 16 pounds just of water, and the sprayer itself adds another couple of pounds. So yeah, having it on casters. If the manufacturer of this device recognizes its device, what would make its device even better is if the wheels were built into the bottom. I think my suggestion to that company is that the base needs to be a little bit wider than the tank, but that would make for a really, really good product for indoor plant people. I have considered using some great adhesive to literally adhere that tank to the wheel thing, but I'm going to play it out with the shoulder strap attachment, see how that goes. But yeah, that's been, oh man, I've talked about it for a long time. It was a game changer for me. The other thing that's best of stuff is my Sansi vertical grow light. And I'll put in a picture over here of it because it's working right now. I have it set up in the den, and it's covering quite a wide area. And the plants in there are loving it, are super loving it. I mean, then they're in front of a western window, so it gets good light for most of the afternoon, but they are loving that vertical grow light. My H. cananthus longicollis is the side that faces the grow light is covered with new growth. My Monstera Thai constellation, which has always been pokey for me, is putting out a new leaf. Everybody else seems happy. It's a really cool design. It takes up very little space. It's adjustable. It's got a timer built in. I'm really happy with that. So yeah, I endorse that product. And the surprise is fishing weights. I was sitting in my den one night watching YouTube videos, probably plants, and I heard a sound from down the hall, and I knew exactly what it was because I know the sound of a pot of pond falling over. And one of my Hoya bellas, the innavariegated, had taken a dive off the shelf where it sits. The front side, it spills over the edge, so the mass of the plant had overcome the inertial force of the weight of the pond, and it needed water, so there was no weight from water in there, and it just did a header. And so I cleaned it up and got it all settled back in and realized that I needed a happy solution to put some weight on the back side of that pot. And I thought about it for a little bit, and found fishing weights. I don't know if these are lead. I'm guessing that they are lead. They come with a little eyelet in the top. I use either S-hooks or pieces of wire, and I have them, they come in 8 ounces, 6 ounces, and 4 ounces, probably other weights, but I haven't purchased those. And I hang them on the back of some of the pots. I have Dischidia along the front of my desk here, and the heavy ones, my Dischidia rucifolia and my Dischidia ovata, each have a weight on the back of them so that they don't fall off the front edge. My Hoya Thompsoni, which sits on the front edge here, I have it in a pot that was originally a hanging pot. It still is a hanging pot, but I don't have it hanging on the wall. The light wasn't good for it, so the light there is, and to keep it from spilling off the front edge, I have a, what is that, a 4 ounce weight hanging on the back of it. So the smaller weights of these are fairly inexpensive. When you get to this size, they can get a little pricey, but then I don't need my plant falling off the edge of the shelf. So yeah, this has been a really good solution to what was going to become a bigger problem for me. So yeah, so that's the best of plants and stuff for 2025. And we do have a couple RIPs for the year. My Hoya undulata. I was so proud and pleased at how that plant was growing, and oof, I will try again. Hoya species Garrett, twice. Yeah. Thin leaf, thin vine, did not do well in rooting, and I tried a couple different ways. I'm trying to see if I can find a rooted one, but yeah, won't do. It's not an F-word plant, but I won't do it again until I can find a rooted one. Dischidia astafana. That was kind of me. It's a Dischidia that needs a lot more humidity than I can provide. And even though it was nice, humid summer, it was just not enough for that plant. So yeah, it turned brown and became compost. My Hoya species AH014, the big tall one with the big round leaves, yeah, as I said, it fell over twice and it just never recovered from that fall. So bye-bye. And papuahoya biculiana, twice. As I said, similar thing, thin vine, thin leaves. It really didn't like traveling as a cutting. It traveled okay as the cutting, but once it got here and got into a rooting setup, it just didn't do well. One of my friends has suggested the method that they use that seems to work really well for them. But I think the difference is that they are taking the cutting and rooting it immediately. And mine spends, 3 days in a box. So they're working on a rooted one for me. So that's very cool. And goodbye, guys. We miss you. And now a special thank you to all of you. You guys have made this just a fun, delightful year. Having the conversations through the comments, sharing my plants with you guys, hearing back from you about what you're doing and what you're trying and what you're growing is really, really cool. It's just enjoyable. It's fun. I look forward to doing these. And that's because of my viewers and my subscribers. So thank you all for everything you've done, helping me get to 4,000, shortly with luck, 4,100. And we'll start working on some other things. And for your suggestions, I haven't forgotten them. I have a list of suggestions that you guys make for videos, so that's there too. But thank you all, and I hope you all have a safe and happy and enjoyable 2026. And the last question for the comments for 2025 is, and thank you to everyone who sent in questions. It was very fun to read. And as I said, I did answer everyone that came in. Thank you to the people who contributed their cities and hometowns for the list. I always look forward to that. It's so cool. I'm a geography nerd, so that just appeals to me completely. So the question is, what are your plant goals, wishes, wish list additions for the next year? Are there things you're going to try and do differently? Are there things you're going to try and do for the first time? Are there plants you're looking for? Share that with us. It's always fun to hear what you guys are doing, because I'm just talking to an empty room right now. So when I hear back from you with what you're working on, you guys are funny. So I usually have a good time reading your comments. So yeah, that's the question for the comments. And as always, I want to thank you for choosing to spend a little bit of your time with me this week's end, not just this week, but the past 51 weeks. Please remember to click that thumbs up like button, the subscribe button, and the notification bell. And when you're all done with everything, click that hype button on mobile devices. It really helps the channel and tells YouTube that people are watching and that maybe other people would want to watch too. A lot of the products that you've seen me use are available through my Amazon storefront, and there's a QR code here that will take you to the storefront. I receive a small commission on the sales. It doesn't increase your price whatsoever, and it's a really nice way of helping support the channel. If you're in the market for grow lights, I have a relationship with Sonsi, and if you click on this QR code, it will take you to the Sonsi website. And if you use my code, Planted in RI, you'll receive a 30% discount on the price of the grow lights that you find there. I receive a commission from the sales on that site, and when you use that code, and it's another great way to help support the channel. I've been very, very happy with my Sonsi grow lights, and they have made a big difference in the lives of some of my plants. So yes, if you would like to support the channel directly, here's a QR code for my Buy Me a Coffee page. And there's a link down here, the thanks button, and you can send a contribution through one of those two methods. I'm going to put links to a couple more videos. I can never remember which side it is, but one of these sides you'll see links to a couple more videos that you may enjoy. And thank you all for spending some time with me. Thank you all for watching, and please enjoy the rest of your week's end.